All right, so picture this. You're standing on a beach that looks almost too perfect to be real. Water. So clear you can see your own toes wiggling 20 feet down. Sand so fine it feels like walking on flour. Giant granite boulders, house-sized rocks, sitting right on the shoreline, smooth as glass, like someone left a pile of giant marbles on the beach. Sound like paradise, right? Sound like the kind of place you'd see on a screensaver. But here's the thing nobody tells you. This place is weird. Genuinely, scientifically weird. These islands aren't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not the way they are. We're talking about the Seychelles, a tiny nation floating out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, hundreds of miles from anywhere. And once you start digging into how these islands came to be, what's crawling around on them, and what's been happening there for the last few hundred years, you start to realize this isn't just some vacation brochure spot. This is one of the strangest corners of the entire planet. So grab whatever you're drinking, get comfortable, because we're about to go down a rabbit hole that starts with pirates and ends with rocks older than the Himalayas. Let's get into it. First thing you gotta wrap your head around, most islands out in the ocean, especially way out in the middle of nowhere, are volcanic. They pop up out of hot spots on the ocean floor, like Hawaii, like Iceland. Molten rock pushes up, cools off, and boom, you got yourself an island. That's the normal way this works. The Seychelles did not get that memo. The main islands, the ones with people living on them, like Maher, Praslin, and La Diga, are made of granite, actual solid granite, the same stuff you'd find in a mountain range on a continent. And that's a big deal, because granite islands like these are extraordinarily rare in the middle of the ocean. Everywhere else, granite is attached to a continent. It's landlocked. It's part of a big chunk of crust. So, how did it end up floating around in the middle of the Indian Ocean? Here's where it gets interesting. The granite itself formed roughly 750 million years ago, when this part of continental crust was part of the ancient supercontinent Gondwana. Much later, during the breakup of Gondwana, the Seychelles became separated from India and Madagascar. Scientists believe these granite chunks are leftover pieces of that same ancient landmass. When that supercontinent broke apart, most of the pieces drifted off to become full-blown continents. The Seychelles got left behind, a small fragment, a chunk of forgotten continent, sitting out there by itself for tens of millions of years, slowly shaped by wind, rain, and the relentless forces of the ocean into the landscapes you see today. Think about that for a second. You go to a beach in the Seychelles, and you lean up against one of those giant granite rocks, the ones tourists take a million photos next to. That rock has been part of the Earth's crust since before India collided with Asia, since before the Himalayas existed. It's essentially a piece of a lost world, sitting on a beach, waiting for you to put sunscreen on it. Geologists actually have a name for this. They call the Seychelles a microcontinent, not an island in the traditional sense, not a volcanic pop-up, an actual piece of continental crust that got separated and left behind, drifting alone, slowly turning into paradise while nobody was watching. Now here's where the mystery moved from geology into human history. For most of recorded history, nobody lived on the Seychelles. No indigenous population, no ancient civilization. While people were building pyramids in Egypt and setting up empires in China, the Seychelles just sat there, empty, untouched. That's unusual. Most habitable islands on Earth got settled by somebody at some point thousands of years ago. Polynesians were sailing extraordinary distances across open ocean, navigating by stars and swells. But the Seychelles? Nobody showed up. For thousands of years, this lush, fertile set of islands sat completely uninhabited. Exactly why nobody established a permanent settlement there for so long isn't completely clear. Its isolation and the difficulty of reaching the islands may have played a role. Arab and other Indian Ocean sailors may have known about these islands centuries before Europeans arrived, though the evidence for that is uncertain. The first recorded European sighting came in 1503, when a Portuguese fleet associated with Vasco da Gama's voyages past the islands. Nobody stuck around. Nobody built anything. For centuries, this place sat there, empty and forgotten, and that's where the pirates come in. By the late 1600s and into the 1700s, the Indian Ocean was basically the Wild West of the sea. Merchant ships were hauling enormous amounts of treasure, gold, silk, spices, between Europe, Africa, and Asia. Where there are treasure ships, there are pirates looking to steal from them. The Seychelles, being this hidden, uninhabited chain of islands, became the perfect hideout. There are real pirate stories, real ships, and centuries-old legends of hidden loot. There's documented pirate history tied to these islands. Real pirates, real ships, and legends of hidden loot that have never quite gone away. Which brings us to maybe the most intriguing mystery in the whole story. You ever hear of a guy named Olivier Levasseur? His nickname was Buse, French for the buzzard. According to legend, he swooped down on his targets like a bird of prey. Buse was one of the most successful pirates of his era, operating in the Indian Ocean in the early 1700s. In 1721, he and his crew captured a Portuguese ship called the Nossa Senhora do Cabo near Reunion, a vessel carrying the Viceroy of Goa and an enormous amount of valuable cargo, including precious metals, gemstones, silk, and religious artifacts. It was one of the richest pirate captures of the era. For years after that, Buse continued raiding ships around the Indian Ocean, using islands like the Seychelles as hideouts to lay low and restock. Eventually, his luck ran out. French authorities caught up with him, and in 1730, he was hanged for piracy on the island of Reunion, not far from the Seychelles. Here's the part that turns this from a pirate story into a genuine mystery. Legend says that right before his execution, standing on the gallows with a noose around his neck, Buse threw a piece of paper into the crowd and challenged someone to find his treasure. But here's the problem. The famous cryptogram tied to that story wasn't actually published until 1934, more than 2 centuries after his death. Historians still debate whether it's authentic, whether it really came from Buse at all, or whether it was constructed much later. There's no surviving original manuscript that proves it. Treasure hunters have been trying to crack that cryptogram for close to a century now, regardless of where it actually came from. No generally accepted solution has ever emerged, and nobody has produced convincing evidence that Buse's legendary treasure has ever been found. A lot of the theories about where it might be buried point toward the Seychelles, specifically the island of Maya, and a bay tucked into it. A researcher named Reginald Cruz Wilkins spent decades of his life digging around the Seychelles trying to find Buse's treasure. His theory was strange, almost obsessive. He believed the cryptogram wasn't simply a map, but a puzzle built around Greek mythology and the stars, specifically the 12 labors of Hercules, encoded into the landscape of Maya itself. He pointed to rock markings, formations, and supposed astronomical clues as pieces of the puzzle. Clues he believed had to be solved in sequence, like some decades-old escape room built out of granite and jungle. He spent his life on it. After Reginald died, his son John eventually took over the search and continued digging. Treasure hunters have continued searching the area over the decades, chasing the same theory. The treasure itself has never been confirmed found, which means, as far as anybody actually knows, it's either still down there somewhere, or it never existed in the first place. And generations of people have spent their lives digging holes in paradise, chasing a riddle written by a man with a noose around his neck. Either way, that's a wild thing to still be unresolved in the 21st century. Think about that. The strange part is that the historical capture is real. What remains unproven is whether any of that treasure ever made it into a buried cache on Maya, surrounded, on top of everything else, by a cryptogram whose very authenticity has been debated for decades. That's documented history people are actively obsessing over to this day. So next time somebody tells you pirate treasure maps are just a Hollywood thing, nah, man. The Seychelles is one of those mysteries sitting out there unsolved right now. Let's shift from human mystery to something just as strange, the wildlife. The Seychelles is home to the Aldabra giant tortoise. These are creatures that can weigh over 500 pounds, with shells the size of a coffee table. Here's the wild part. These tortoises can live an absurdly long time. We're talking well past 100 years old, with some documented individuals believed to have lived beyond 150. There was a famous one named Jonathan, a Seychelles giant tortoise who was brought from the Seychelles to the island of St. Helena in 1882. Jonathan is widely considered one of the oldest known living land animals on the planet. He's believed to have hatched around 1832. Let that sink in. That's an animal that was already alive before the American Civil War. Still breathing, still eating, still watching human history unfold around him like it's background noise. The Aldabra Atoll itself, part of the Seychelles, is home to more of these giant tortoises than anywhere else on Earth. More than 100,000 of them roaming one remote atoll. It's one of the last major strongholds of these creatures anywhere in the world. Their cousins on other islands, like the famous Galapagos tortoises, were devastated by human activity over the centuries. Aldabra is so remote and so protected that it's one of the only places left on the planet where you can see an ecosystem operating close to how it might have functioned before humans arrived. It's a living time capsule. There's something almost eerie about that if you sit with it. These massive, slow-moving creatures, existing on remote islands and atolls, indifferent to the fact that entire human civilizations rose and fell while they were alive. They don't know about your empires. They don't know about your wars. They're just eating grass and living their absurdly long lives on a remote coral atoll in the middle of the ocean. Kind of humbling, honestly. Now let's talk about the coco de mer, because if you've never seen one of these things, you're about to have questions. The coco de mer is a type of palm tree that grows almost exclusively on two islands in Seychelles, Praslin and Curious. It produces the largest seed of any plant on Earth. We're talking seeds that can weigh up to about 55 pounds. But size isn't even the strangest part. It's the shape, without getting too graphic. The seed has a shape that closely resembles a certain part of human anatomy. Both the male and female versions of the tree produce distinctly suggestive shapes. It's famous for it. It's a big part of why tourists go looking for these things in the forest. For centuries, before anyone knew where these massive seeds actually came from, they'd wash up on beaches all over the Indian Ocean. As far away as India and the Maldives, people had no idea what they were or where they came from, since they were found floating in the sea. People assumed they grew on some kind of mysterious underwater tree. That's actually where the name comes from. Coco de mer translates to coconut of the sea. Legends grew up around these seeds. Royalty in places like India and the Maldives believed they had healing powers, even aphrodisiac effects. Some rulers considered owning one a powerful symbol of wealth and status. For a long stretch of history, nobody knew that these mysterious seeds were simply falling off trees on a couple of small islands and drifting out to sea. It wasn't until explorers found the source, the Vallée de Mai forest on Praslin, that the mystery got solved. Even then, that forest is so primeval looking that when General Charles Gordon visited in 1881, he became convinced it was the actual location of the Garden of Eden from the Bible. He was dead serious about this. He wrote about it, producing detailed letters and diagrams laying out his theory. Standing in that forest, surrounded by ancient palms with their strange seeds, he believed he had found paradise itself, the original one, the biblical one. Today, the Vallée de Mai is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Walking through it, by most accounts, genuinely feels like stepping into a primordial world that time forgot, a forest that one man was convinced was literally the Garden of Eden. That's not something you hear about most vacation spots. Here's a chunk of this story that barely anybody knows, and it gets surprisingly dark. During the Cold War, the Seychelles, despite being this tiny, remote nation, became a point of serious geopolitical interest. Its location in the Indian Ocean made the Seychelles strategically important during the Cold War. The Seychelles gained independence from Britain in 1976. Almost immediately, the young nation got tangled up in Cold War intrigue. In 1977, just a year after independence, there was a coup that put a man named France Albert René into power. His government leaned towards socialism and built closer ties with the Soviet Union and Cuba, which made the Western world uneasy about what was happening on these small islands. There were multiple documented attempts to destabilize the Seychelles government over the following years. One of the most notable came in 1981, when a group of mercenaries, including members of South Africa's Defense Force and intelligence apparatus, arrived posing as a rugby tour group with weapons concealed among their luggage. The plot fell apart at the airport when a customs officer got suspicious. A firefight broke out, and the mercenaries ended up hijacking an Air India plane to escape the country. A mercenary coup, disguised as a rugby tour group, that ended in an airplane hijacking. On the Seychelles, that actually happened. That's not a movie plot. There's also long been discussion, some of it more substantiated than others, about intelligence and surveillance activity in the broader Indian Ocean region during and after the Cold War, tied to nearby military and communications installations. The specifics of what happened and where remain murky and aren't fully a matter of public record. So underneath all that turquoise water and all those Instagram sunsets, there's a quiet layer of espionage, coup attempts, and Cold War maneuvering that most tourists have no idea ever happened. Remember that microcontinent idea from earlier? The forgotten scrap of crust that broke off and drifted alone? Here's the part that usually gets left out. The granite islands you can actually walk on, Maha, Praslin, La Diga, are only the exposed part of something much bigger. Underneath the water surrounding them sit a much larger shallow continental platform geologists called the Seychelles Bank, built on the same ancient granite basement, a piece of the same continental breakup. Most of that ancient crust never rises above the surface at all. It's still down there, submerged. Much of it lies beneath the shallow waters surrounding the islands, mostly ignored because you can't see it from a beach chair. And it doesn't stop there. Further out, past the bank, researchers have identified other fragments of continental crust scattered across the floor of the Indian Ocean, pieces of the same ancient breakup, some of them buried under younger volcanic rock, some of them only confirmed through data pulled from sediment samples and seismic surveys. Scientists have used the name Mauritia for these fragments of ancient continental crust, thought to have broken away during the breakup of the old supercontinent Gondwana. Much of it isn't something anyone has ever simply walked up and looked at. It's reconstructed from geological evidence, inferred from grains of ancient mineral called zircon that shouldn't exist in young volcanic sand. Except they do, because they got dragged up from something buried far below. Sit with that for a second. There's good evidence that fragments of an ancient landmass, pieced together from scattered geological clues, not a single surveyed shape, are sitting down there, and nobody has ever laid eyes on them directly. We know they're probably there the way you'd know somebody walked through a room by the footprints they left, without ever seeing the person. On top of that, marine surveys around the Seychelles have shown how much remains undocumented. Researchers have recorded species previously unknown from Seychelles waters, and at least one fish discovered around the Amaranths was later confirmed as a species entirely new to science. Then there's the scale of the country itself, which sounds almost made up until you check the numbers. The Seychelles is only about 176 square miles of actual land, but its exclusive economic zone, the ocean area where Seychelles holds special rights over resources, stretches across roughly 529,000 square miles. That means the overwhelming majority of what belongs to this country isn't land at all. It's ocean. Much of it still far less familiar to us than the land above it, surrounding and covering fragments of ancient continental crust. A drowned world of ancient crust beneath the surface. That's a strange way to think about a nation. A country whose land area is small enough to cross in a relatively short drive, that legally owns an area of ocean almost twice the size of Texas, floating above the bones of a continent that vanished before anyone was around to name it. There's one part of this story that always gets people leaning in a little closer, an island most people have never heard of, Aldabra. We already talked about the tortoises out there, but Aldabra deserves its own spotlight for how bizarrely untouched it is. It's one of the largest raised coral atolls on Earth, and access is heavily restricted. You can't just book a ticket and show up. Scientists and researchers need special permits. It's managed almost like a protected vault of an ecosystem. Because it stayed so isolated for so long, Aldabra has become a kind of living laboratory. One of the only places on the planet where you can study an ecosystem functioning close to how it did before modern human interference. It's one of the few places left where giant tortoises still roam in large numbers, the way they might have thousands of years ago, before humans drove many large land animals elsewhere to extinction. There's something almost unsettling about a place like that existing. A hidden island, difficult to access, where time seems to move differently than it does everywhere else. Ancient tortoises, untouched reefs. Creatures go about their business exactly like they have for a very long time, unaware that humanity built skyscrapers and smartphones and sent things into space while they were quietly just existing out there. Aldabra also happens to be home to some of the largest land crabs on Earth. Coconut crabs strong enough to crack open a coconut with their claws, wandering around the same beaches as those giant tortoises. And Aldabra hosts the largest frigate bird breeding colony in the Indian Ocean, the second largest in the world. Because Aldabra is so isolated, scientific monitoring and research, there's still very much an ongoing part of understanding its ecosystem. It's the kind of place that messes with your sense of time if you think about it too long. Here's the thing that ties this whole mystery together. The Seychelles has this bizarre quality where, despite being a glamorous, well-photographed vacation destination that celebrities and honeymooners flock to constantly, the deeper history of the place gets almost completely buried under travel brochures and Instagram filters. Nobody's making documentaries about Buse's lost treasure the way they do about Oak Island or the Bermuda Triangle. Maybe that's just how this place has always operated, quietly hiding things from explorers, from pirates, from the rest of the world, for centuries at a time. So next time somebody shows you a picture of those perfect white sand beaches and those giant smooth boulders, remember, you're not just looking at a pretty vacation photo. You're looking at a fragment of a lost continent, a former pirate hideout where a fortune may still be buried, a home to creatures older than most human institutions, a quiet stage where Cold War intrigue once played out, and a nation floating above a drowned world most of us will never see. The Seychelles isn't just paradise. It's a puzzle, and most of the pieces are still missing. So yeah, that's the Seychelles. Not just a postcard, not just a honeymoon spot. A genuine mystery hiding in plain sight, out in the middle of one of the largest oceans on Earth. If you ever get the chance to go, and you're standing on one of those beaches looking at those giant granite rocks, remember what you're actually looking at. A piece of a forgotten continent, still holding a few secrets nobody's fully cracked. Some mysteries get solved. This one's still wide open. And if you're into places like this, The ones that don't quite add up, the ones history conveniently skipped over. Stick around. There's a lot more of the world we haven't actually looked at yet. Hit subscribe, and let's go find the next one.